Spine-chilling true stories of sinister encounters in haunted cornfields revealed. The wind howled like a wounded beast as the Whites stepped onto the cracked wooden porch of their new farmhouse in Oak Hollow, Kansas. It was supposed to be a fresh start for the family, but the air was thick with an unsettling chill. Just beyond the fence, the sprawling cornfields twisted in the twilight, tall stalks whispering of secrets meant to be buried, the kind that made your skin crawl and your heart race. Ben, 8 years old, shivered, clutching his little sister, Lily, who's only 6. "Do you hear that?" he asked, wide-eyed. A giggle? No, it was a mocking laugh. It echoed across the fields, sending a shivery thrill down their spines. The parents exchanged uneasy glances. They brushed it off, but dread settled like fog. This was just corn, right? Just fields. But nothing felt safe. A few days in, the laughter returned. It pierced through the silence like a knife. Sarah and Tom's instinct to dismiss it as children's imaginations evaporated. The kids spoke of 2 playmates they met in the cornfields, their laughter rising up into the still air, floaty and ephemeral. "They said they want to play with us," Lily squeaked, grinning, while Ben trembled, his eyes darting around. Sarah's heart sank. Nights turned restless. They heard murmurings as they lay in bed, winds whispering like a voice conspiring against them. When Tom ventured outside to investigate, darkness swallowed him whole. He could almost feel a pair of eyes lurking just beyond the porch light, shadows flickering, mocking his search. A chill crawled up his spine. Was he truly alone? The reality of their chosen sanctuary began to unravel, tearing at the seams of the ideal life they sought. And then there was Mr. Hargrave, their neighbor, tall and gaunt, sitting on his porch. His grin could curdle milk. He warned Tom, low and raspy, "You can't trust what you can't see." His words hung ominously in the air, weaving an unshakable sense of dread into their days. Each chuckle on the wind, each rustle of the corn, sent tremors through their happiness, reinforcing an invisible barrier between them and the world outside. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each day, the children's artwork morphed. The figures they drew more monstrous, more hollow-eyed, standing in the fields of corn. Were these figments from their grief, manifestations tugging at their sanity? With voices that were both sweet and sinister nudging them towards the tangled sea of stalks, the Whites' isolation deepened. They confided in the local sheriff. He rolled his eyes, dismissing their fears. "Just country life," he chuckled, leaving the Whites alone in their panic. Then came the night. They could no longer ignore the whispers. Ominous sounds flooded their home, and with heartbeats in their throats, the Whites raced to the cornfield under the pale moonlight. Shadows flickered menacingly, fingers stretching out as if beckoning them closer, deeper into the desolation of the field. In that moment, everything froze. The children's laughter faded into a haunting echo, replaced by a desperate cry for help they didn't even know they were sending out. The allure grew stronger, a grotesque calling bound by sorrow and lost souls. A dark invitation. The lines blurred and dread tightened like a noose around their family. What waits within those cornfields? Is it playmates, or something that wants to take them too? The stakes climbed, and with night's embrace wrapping tighter, they realized with dread that the darkness wasn't just a backdrop. It was alive and hungry. The night grew thick, shrouding the cornfields in a suffocating blanket of darkness. The children's cries echoed faintly, almost drowned by the wind's wretched howl. Tom felt the pull of the field, an unusual force tugging at him like a fishing line, hauling him into the depths. Sarah gripped his arm tight, panic surging through her. "We should go back. This isn't right." But the shadows didn't waver. They beckoned. Tom hesitated, his heart fighting against common sense. Just beyond the flickering porch light, the tangled corn stalks moved, whispering secrets, swaying to an unseen rhythm. He glanced down at his children, faces pale against the silver light, still and wide-eyed. And then, through the veil of darkness, he swore he saw something shifting, a figure flitting between the rows. They weren't alone. "Kids, back to the house!" The command slipped from his lips with urgency, but as he turned to usher them away, a chilling laughter rang out, louder this time. Ben gasped. Mom clutched Lily close, each giggle twisted like a knife in the air, sweet, taunting, laced with malice. The fields were alive, crawling with the weight of something far worse than just shadows. In a sudden action born from necessity, Tom lunged forward, grabbing Ben's hand, pulling him swiftly in the opposite direction. But as he turned, a frail little voice slipped through the dark. "Daddy! They want to show us something!" Lily protested, her eyes bright yet vacant, entranced. She let go of Sarah and reached back toward the darkness. "No, Lily!" Sarah shouted, her voice cracking as dread enveloped her throat. Together they fought against the haunting allure, yet their daughter stirred toward the field, almost drawing them in as though she were magnetized. "I wanna play!" Ben clutched his sister's arm, his heart racing, but the glow in Lily's eyes was unsettling, something not of this world. "Please don't go," he begged, terror twisting his small features. With desperation clawing at his throat, Tom yanked Lily back to him. "We need to leave now." The wind howled louder, as if protesting their attempt to escape. The cornstalks shifted in a hurry, reaching out like long fingers, brushing against Tom's arms, cold and tingly. They were just plants, were they? Moments dragged, thick with dread, as silence fell, contrasted sharply against the thumping of their hearts. And then a new noise rose from inside the field, a rhythmic thud, like footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Tom exchanged glances with Sarah, both feeling the weight of impending horror slide down their spines. "We need to run," Tom whispered fiercely, pulling Sarah and the kids as they broke out into frantic sprinting. The world around them dimmed, as if the moonlight dimmed in protest to their escape. But the shadows grew thicker, layering their path with deeper darkness. They could hear laughter, I swear they could. It wasn't just kids, it was a cacophony, an orchestra of seduction playing from the very depths of the cornfield. Suddenly they paused, breathless, at the edge, staring wide-eyed back into the field. A shape emerged, vague but unmistakable. A child. No, too elongated, too twisted, as if made out of the very shadows they fled from. A glimmer of something sharp flashed in the moonlight, catching Tom's eye. "Run!" he cried, instinct kicking in. They darted for the safety of their home, but as they raced, the laughter boiled around them, swelling with every heartbeat. Behind them, the creature followed, inching closer, then darting back into the safety of the cornstalks, waiting, watching. They reached the steps of the porch, hearts pounding frantically against their ribs, just as a chilling whisper slithered through the air, drowning their last hopes. "Come back, we just want to play." What awaited them in the safety of their farmhouse? Had they truly escaped, or were they already trapped? As they stumbled into the house, darkness loomed at the windows, promising that the worst was yet to come. The door slammed shut with a resounding thud, rattling the wooden frame as Tom threw the bolt in a frenzy. The silence that followed was deceptive, thick and claustrophobic, wrapping around them like a noose. He turned to his family, the wild panic in their eyes mirroring his own. "We need to lock everything," he said, his voice low and frantic. Without waiting for a reply, he dashed to the windows, pulling down the heavy curtains to shut out the ominous glow. Sarah held Lily close, the little girl trembling, her wide eyes still reflecting the pull of the field. "Why did you want to go back, Lily?" Sarah whispered. concern threading through her voice as she brushed a wisp of hair from her daughter's forehead. "They wanted to play, Mommy," Lily murmured, her voice innocent yet unnervingly distant. "They said I could have a friend." Tom paused where he stood, incredulity washing over him. Friends? Or something else? The thought clawed at him as he fumbled with locks, the metallic clicks punctuating the heavy silence. They were safe, at least inside, but a gnawing dread told him that safety was an illusion. The laughter echoed outside, a disturbing serenade mingled with the wind. It was playful and sinister. It slithered through the cracks of the house, wrapping itself around Tom's heart like a cold serpent. Goosebumps prickled his skin. "Let's find the flashlight," Sarah suggested, keeping her voice calm for the kids' sake. The soft beam lit their cramped living room, revealing shadows that danced menacingly on the walls. Tom moved, but the feeling of being watched weighed heavily on him. "Where's Ben?" he suddenly asked, panic rising again. He glanced around, searching desperately. "Here!" Ben's voice came from the kitchen, quivering. "Look!" He pointed toward the back door. Thick shadows pulsated across the glass. The latch rattled violently, a frantic attempt to break in. "Get away from there," Tom shouted, rushing across the room. He slammed the kitchen door shut and secured it tight, another lock clicking into place. "Did you see it?" Ben stammered, fear creeping into his words. "It looks big, not like a kid." Tom knelt to meet his son's eyes, feeling the grip of dread tighten around him. "It's okay, buddy. Whatever it is, we're safe in here." Yet the tremor in his own hands contradicted his words. The scratching began, thin and sharp against wood. "What do they want?" Sarah's voice quavered. The shadows outside slurred across the walls, distorting their home into an alien landscape. "Maybe they want to play," chimed in Lily dreamily. The dim light around them flickered, casting a ghostly halo around her, and the family exchanged horrified glances. The laughter amplified, cascading, like children playing on a summer's day, but twisted, a mocking tune echoing in the void of the cornfields. Suddenly, the front door quaked violently. Tom's heart raced. He turned to Sarah, fear exchanging with determination. "We need to stick together. Whatever happens, we don't separate." He gathered the children close. As if sensing their unity, the laughter morphed into a guttural growl that reverberated through the walls. With it came a sickening sense of dread, an electric sensation slithering into their bones. Just then, the front porch light flickered, then died, plunging them into darkness. Fear turned into palpable terror. Would they truly survive this night? In that heavy silence, the faintest whisper slipped through the cracks. "Come play with us. Forever." Tom felt ice squeeze his heart. Was there a way out, or were they already part of whatever was lurking, drawn forever into the shadows that called for them? As they huddled together, hearts pounding, a sudden crash erupted from outside, leaving them barely clinging to their sanity. What waited beyond the door? The answer loomed just out of sight. But would they dare to face it? The air turned colder, a palpable chill that crept into their bones, seeping through the cracks of the house like a malevolent fog. Tom held Lily tightly. The warmth of her small body in his arms contrasted sharply with the creeping dread in his mind. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a taunt, an invitation to the dark that loomed just outside their sanctuary. "What was that?" Sarah whispered, straining to hear over the pounding of her own heart. "It came from the field," Ben said, his voice barely above a murmur, his small face strained with terror as he peered out of a window, the flashlight flickering ominously. "Close the curtains, now!" Tom barked, instinctively pushing his family back away from the view. He could not bear the thought of whatever lurked in the dark, having a glimpse into their terror. The shadows outside twisted and squirmed, and he could swear he saw shapes moving, writhing in the flickering light. The whispers returned, threading through the air, smoky and sinister, tugging at his sanity. "Join us! Join us!" The words rolled in like a dense fog, each syllable dripping with seduction. His grip on Lily tightened, her small hand slipping into his, seeking comfort. A crash erupted from the back of the house, a sound large enough to shake the very walls. Sarah gasped, her eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. What was that? We have to check it out. We can't ignore it, Ben urged, his youthful bravery bolstered by the adrenaline coursing through him. It made Tom's heart ache to see such courage framed by fear. No! Tom snapped, shaking his head. We stay together, we stay away from the back, it'll be fine. But even as he forced those words out, doubt gnawed at him. He could feel it, an instinct telling him that safety within these walls was an illusion. Suddenly, the front door rattled again, louder this time, slamming against the frame as if a hurricane were at play. The sound echoed in the quiet afterbreath, loud enough to shatter any last remnants of hope. The whispers grew loud, now a cacophony of voices, a chorus of laughter and cries. The wood of the door creaked again, but this time it sounded different, more like a heartbeat, pounding steadily, rhythmically, as if something were trying to break through. "Tom! What do we do?" Sarah's voice cracked, desperation flooding her tone. "Stay calm!" he shouted, his own inner turmoil surging. "The back windows! Check the back windows!" There was a rush of movement, the children slipping into action. They dashed toward the living room, leaving Sarah and Tom at the front. Then a light flickered back to life, illuminating the chaos that surrounded them. But this light glimmered, not from their flashlight. Instead, it came from the cornfield outside. A dim green glow pulsed rhythmically like a distant heartbeat, and it drew their gaze despite their better instincts. "Look!" Ben exclaimed, gripping Lily's shoulder. "What is that?" The glow intensified, and in an instant it materialized into shapes, figures moving as if in a dance, luring the children closer to the window. "No! Get away from there!" Tom shouted, lunging toward them, fear surging through him. But it was too late. The moment Ben reached out to the glass, he gasped, eyes wide in bewilderment. It's so beautiful." "Don't!" Sarah screamed, but the moment hung, broken, and then the laughter echoed again, growing frantic and wild, ringing sharper, and this time there was no mistaking the malice behind it. The figures became clearer, twisted and grotesque, a grotesque parody of joy, drawing them in with their deceptive dance. The scratching intensified, morphing into something almost melodic. Tom's panic turned to hopeless desperation, a threadbare rope slipping through his fingers. He turned, searching for a way to shield his family from the nightmare unfolding. But as he opened his mouth to scream, the figures outside turned to face him, their grins impossibly wide, their eyes hollow voids. "Play with us," they whispered in unison, the voice a seductive serration in his mind. Terror flooded through Tom. He knew, somehow, that he had to act, and fast. What could break the spell? What would save them? But the clock was ticking, and every second the children stared into that eldritch glow, they drifted further away from him. "Run!" It was the only thing he could think to say. Would they heed his call? Or would they succumb to the darkness drawing them in, step by step? And as the world outside erupted in a chorus of screams and haunting laughter, Tom realized their nightmare was only beginning. What awaited them beyond the glow? Was it already too late? Tom's heart raced, thundering in his chest like a war drum, drowning out everything but the urgent plea to save his children. The fabric of reality around them felt thinner, the air growing taut with dread. The grotesque figures outside giggled, their laughter climbing up to shrieks, an unsettling symphony that echoed throughout the house, making it impossible to think straight. "Ben! Lily, get back!" Tom shouted, the very words tearing at his throat as he hurled himself against the window. The glass vibrated beneath his palm, taunting him with its fragile barrier. He could see Ben's innocent face almost pressed against the glass, mesmerized by the unholy glow. "Get away from the window now!" But the kids were entranced, their faces lit by the ghastly illumination, their eyes wide, unblinking. There was nothing left of the brave children, Tom knew. "Tom!" Sarah yanked at his arm, her face pale and desperate. The whispers seemed to surge, filling the air around them, beckoning her with promises of companionship. "We have to do something." "Look away." He grabbed her shoulders, shaking her gently, trying to rip her attention from the chaos. Her blank expression shattered, and for a fleeting moment he saw recognition flash in her eyes. But it was gone just as quickly, drawn back into that bright pull of whatever evil danced outside. "Tom, please!" Her voice trembled. The shadows around them were thickening, creeping up the walls like the rising tide, ready to envelop them whole. "No, we can't!" He felt the heat of urgency urging him forward. "We have to create a distraction!" His mind raced. "The kitchen! Get the knives!" Their old farmhouse had seen better days, but the kitchen had something useful, a dull wooden block with knives. He forced himself to pull away from the vision, slamming the living room door shut and placing his back against it, the thumping from the outside pressing against the wood profoundly. Ben and Lily turned from the window, eyes glassy. That wasn't their children staring at him anymore. He could feel madness creeping into the edges of their minds. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice was fragile, haunting. The brightness outside dimmed just a bit, shadows pulsing with life against the walls. "Just stay close," Tom demanded, his voice hoarse but filled with conviction. He rushed toward the kitchen, with the sound of Sarah trembling in the background. They needed to defend themselves. They needed something to fight back. In the kitchen, the knives were held in place, trapped in a world made of terror and tension. He snatched one and turned back, the blade gleaming under the low light of the flickering bulb above. "Sarah!" he called, his voice steadying as he spoke. "Grab the pots and pans! Make noise! We need to snap them out of it!" The children were losing themselves more and more by the second. The laughter outside warped into growls, the ground outside shaking as though something enormous was stirring. With wooden spoons and metal pots in hand, Sarah struck, the sound resonating through the house. "Stay back! We're not afraid of you!" she yelled, her voice a fragile roar. The figures outside shrieked, voices twisting into agony. It was not what they expected. The laughter turned aggressive, heavy, a groan of thunder that echoed from the edges of the field. Shadows shifted, distorting, abandoning their rhythm as if electrocuted. "Tom! I can't see them!" Ben shouted, eyes wide in horror, as a heavy claw scraped the glass of the window. "The light! It's burning them!" Tom noticed through the chaos. The shadows writhed, the glow from the field diminished, battling against the cold void pressing in on them. But at that moment the door rattled fiercely as if something wanted to come in, a heavier force, dark and eager. "Stand back!" Tom shouted, shoving his family behind him, knife raised. He felt sweat pooling at the base of his neck, his pulse hammering against the cage of his ribs. But then they heard it, a low growl like thunder swallowing the laughter. Its tone was distinct, a promise of torment. What would it take to seal the door against this terror? Would this weapon be enough, or had they awakened a hunger too strong to resist? As the shadows blurred around them, one final scream broke free from the door, and Tom's world spiraled into darkness. Will we survive this night? He wondered, holding his breath, as it seemed like something was already stepping through. Tom's senses sharpened, the air thick with dread as he felt the vibrations through the wooden floor. The oppressive weight pressed down on them, swallowing the faint echoes of Sarah's drum-like banging on the pots. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, her voice piercing the tempest of chaos like a fragile shard of glass. The shadows outside halted for a heartbeat, holding their breath in anticipation. "Shh! Just stay close," Sarah managed, her own voice quivering like a taut wire. The darkness outside seemed to pulse, responding to their fear. Each deep, grating growl made the children shrink further into Tom's embrace. The door shuddered as if a massive storm slammed against it. A thick, clawed hand pressed against the wood, fingers curling like roots, seeking to penetrate the ground. The knuckles gnarled, skin vibrating with the shadow's energy. Tom's heart dropped, but he couldn't show it. He was the protector. His grip on the knife tightened. "We can't let it in," he shouted, his own voice rising above the din. He knew they needed to buy time to hold this nightmare at bay. "They want what we have. We must fight." Sarah nodded frantically, beating the pots harder. The noise rang like a desperate alarm, but it only seemed to stir the sinister amusement beyond the door. It felt like a game to them, a sickening dance of fear. An eerie chuckle rolled through the air, morphing into a cacophony of hundreds of voices, whispering secrets that twisted in Tom's head. "Mommy, what's happening?" Ben cried, his wide eyes reflecting the madness creeping closer. "Stick together," Tom barked, forcing the fear down. His instincts screamed at him to protect them. The door bucked under a tremendous force. Cracks splintered from the hinges, gnawing at Tom's hope. He never thought his love would be put to such a test. "Light, we need—" Before he could finish, the door burst open with a violent crash, splintered wood raining like hail. A dark mass pushed through, tendrils snaking into the house, reaching for them with insatiable hunger. It was a surge of pure malice, rolling in like smoke, thick and chilling. "Run!" Tom yelled, acting on instinct as he shoved Sarah and the kids toward the kitchen door at the back. But the thing, it was fast. The claws had massive reach, grabbing hold of their ankle and wrapping cold shadows around their limbs. It threatened to pull them back into the void, roaring behind it. In the kitchen, Tom grabbed a handful of flour bags, hurling them into the air. A bright cloud expanded, momentarily blinding the monster. Squeezing past the thick darkness, he yanked the kids free, adrenaline fueling his panic. "Out the back!" he shouted, supporting Lily as she stumbled. They moved with the desperate urgency of prey escaping a predator, hearts pounding, breaths short. The back door creaked, barely giving way. Tom swung it open, shoving the kids into the backyard. The open night seemed deceptively calm. Stars sparkled above them, as if mocking their plight. But soon unnatural winds whipped through the trees, rustling the leaves as though they provided warnings that run deeper than the surface. "Where do we go?" Sarah gasped between breaths, eyes darting to the shadows that twisted and danced just beyond the trees. "The barn!" he pointed, feeling dread creep back into his heart. "We can barricade ourselves there." As they took off, a blood-curdling scream split the air, a sound that wasn't human, yet it resonated through the bones. The nightmare was still hunting them, ready to consume. They sprinted, fear propelling them forward as if the blackness behind them was a predator chasing its prey. Tom could feel it, the hot breath of darkness chasing. It wanted them back. Was the safety of the barn an illusion? Would they find refuge, or only extend their fleeting hope before the shadows claimed them? "Tom, look!" Ben shouted, pointing back toward the farmhouse. In that moment, a chilling realization gripped him. The only way to contain what was coming might lie within the walls they had just fled. What had they actually unleashed? And would the barn become a sanctuary or a tomb? The barn loomed ahead like a dark sentinel, its door hanging slightly ajar, creaking in the wind as if beckoning them inside. Tom felt the pull of the shadows behind him, thickening in the faint light of the stars. Time felt warped, each second stretching into eternity as they drew closer. "Move!" he urged, pressing Lily against his side. The moment they ducked inside, the barn smelled of stale hay and something else, something rotting. It was dim still, but the barricade of old planks and rusty tools gave them a moment of respite. Tom slammed the door shut, his heart racing. They could hear their ragged breaths echoing off the wooden walls, mingling with the distant wails of the night. Is it gone?" Sarah whispered. fear pinching her voice. Tom strained to see through the cracks, but all he could feel was the weight of dread creeping back. He couldn't let himself think. They had to be ready. "I don't know," he said. "We need to find something, anything to block this door." Ben, visibly shaken, crept closer to Tom. "What can we do? It's going to get in. It won't find us here, not if we—" "Just help me," Tom snapped, his own urgency echoing his fear. He grabbed an old wooden crate, dragging it behind him, slamming it against the door. As Sarah guided Ben to pile more hay bales against the entrance, a fleeting shadow flickered past the windows. "Did you see that?" Ben quaked, staring at the strength of darkness pressing against the barn walls. Tom spun around to reassure him. "It's just the wind." But deep down he felt it, the terrible truth that it was more than mere wind. The feeling that something was circling, waiting for the moment when they would relax, when their resolve would falter. The barn creaked ominously, responding to their fear. "Look for something we can use, a pitchfork or a lantern," he ordered, his voice sharp. But as they scoured through the dim light, the suffocating silence began to play tricks on his mind. He felt fingers trailing along the back of his neck, an exquisite, terrible chill creeping down his spine. Suddenly, something slammed against the side of the barn, rattling the walls. "Tom!" Sarah gasped, clutching Lily tighter. He turned, heart racing. "Stay back!" But a void appeared within the barn, snaking out like a serpent among the tools. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her voice breaking through the tension like a glass shattering. Tom squeezed the knife tightly, prepared for whatever would break through. The shadows twisted, bubbling in and out of focus, full of misplaced forms and grotesque faces, each one a fragment of nightmares uncalled for. "It's coming in." He knew they only had moments. "We have to fight." They gathered together, adrenaline pumping, but every shadow echoed their worst fears, pulling at their minds with chilling whispers, relentless in their taunting. "You cannot hide. You cannot escape." Then the barn door cracked. A visible split appeared, darkness threading between the wood. Underneath it the ground trembled as if responding to a great weight. Then they heard it. A voice, raspy but clear, cut through the tension. "You cannot seal yourself from the blackness." Tom's blood ran cold. "What do you want?" he shouted, feeling helpless as the shadows encroached. "Everything you have kept from us," came the haunting reply, a symphony of whispered sobs and tortured laughter swirling around them. He glanced at Sarah, fear clouding her eyes. "We need to hold on, no matter what." As the creaking wood began to splinter, cracking under unseen pressure, Tom realized the dark shapes weren't just seeking entry, they were being drawn to something inside them, something they had hidden away. The barn was no sanctuary, and a terrifying revelation pierced his mind. They had unleashed not just fear, but the very darkness inside themselves. It was time to face what they had buried. "Tom!" Ben's voice trembled. "What do we do now?" The shadows surged forward, beckoning with promises of despair, and as Tom prepared for the oncoming storm, the realization dawned on him. They wouldn't just have to fight the darkness outside. There was a deeper battle waiting within. Were they strong enough to confront what they truly feared? What had they become? Tom's heart raced. The shadows writhed, threatening to consume everything in their path. "We fight," he whispered, casting a determined glance at each face. His friends now transformed to reflections of their own fears. Lily trembled in Sarah's arms, her innocent eyes wide with confusion and dread. "Mommy, I'm scared." The plea cut through the growing chaos, spurring Tom into action. "Listen, we stick together." He hurried towards the workbench, his eyes scanning the scattered tools, praying for anything to use as a weapon. Beneath a rusted vise, he spotted a hammer, its head encrusted with neglect. He snatched it up, the cool metal reassuring against his palm. "We need light," Sarah cried, moving closer to Ben. Tom thought of the lantern hanging near the barn's entrance. "Hold this," he instructed as he thrust the hammer into Ben's shaking grip. In one swift motion, Tom crossed the barn to the lantern, fumbling with the rusted latch. The door rattled violently again, and Tom turned just in time to see the sharp haze of darkness pour through the crack like ink spilling from an overturned bottle. Panic surged as the shadows expanded, clawing their way into the barn. "Tom!" Sarah shrieked, eyes wide with horror. He turned to see a shadow take a distinct form, an amorphous figure, its eyes glowing like coals, moving closer, taunting them by echoing their worst fears. "You think a light will save you," it hissed, the voice a cacophony of tortured souls. "You are already lost." Tom pulled the lantern free, the glass cool against his fingers, and flicked open the brass latch. A spark ignited, followed by the warm glow that bathed the interior. Shadows retreated momentarily, but the entity outside hissed in frustration, the noise wrapping around them like barbed wire. "You cannot escape your own darkness." A wave of fear washed over them, tightening like a vice. The whispered doubts began to seep into Tom's mind, mirroring unacknowledged fears and insecurities. "They're right. We can't outrun this," echoed in his thoughts like a mantra. He shook his head, gripping the lantern tightly, forcing himself to block out the insidious whispers. "We fight!" he shouted again, louder this time, banishing the fear that threatened to overwhelm him. With Sarah beside him, they advanced slowly towards the door. "We need to use the light against it," Tom encouraged, igniting the flickering fire inside. The shadows blasted back with fury, and for a moment clarity emerged through the chaos. "What about the windows?" Ben suggested, peering through the cracks. "If we can push the light out, maybe it will stop them." "Good idea," Tom agreed. He turned to Sarah. "Can you hold the lantern? I'll help Ben." With uncertainty cast in every glance between them, they moved to the windows. At each one, darkness gnawed at the edges, pressing in like a predator drawing nearer to its prey. The barn responded to the tension, creaking under the weight of doubt. Beneath the rattle, a single cry escaped from deep within. "Let us in. We are your truth." Tom swallowed hard, heart pounding. "No! You are not me!" he yelled back, every word a battle cry that echoed in the surrounding night. As they pressed the lantern toward the window, a thin crack appeared, light spilling forth. The shadows paused, recoiling as if burned. A cacophony of whispers grew louder, rising to a frenzy. "You can't fight what you are!" But they pushed forward, forcing the light against the growing onslaught. Just as a scream bubbled from the depths of the night, they heard it. A shattering sound. The source was behind them. Tom whipped around to see an old mirror, one cloaked in dust and despair, fractured along its edge. The entities outside surged inward, drawn to the darkness they themselves sought to hide. "Hold the light!" he cried, a rush of urgency coursing through him. The demons they faced weren't just the ones surrounding them, but the ones staring back at them through the mirror. It reflected terrifying truths, past fears, regrets, dreams left to rot. Tom felt bile rise in his throat as he was confronted by a visage he'd buried deep. "Face it," the shadows beckoned, laughter sinister in their tone. "You cannot escape who you are." Suddenly, in that moment of revelation, an idea ignited inside him. "We need to break it." "What?" Ben exclaimed, his eyes wide with terror. "Break the mirror," Tom shouted, feeling an urgency like never before. The realization hit. Only by confronting their own darkness could they extinguish the shadows closing in on them. And as their hands grasped the lantern and tools, they knew the next move would change everything. But would the truth be too much for them to bear? What if facing the darkness within was more terrifying than what lurked outside? Tom's fingers trembled as he tightened his grip on the hammer. Shadows from the mirror flickered, twisting like serpents, and he felt their piercing gaze on him. "Break it!" he urged again, glancing anxiously at his friends. "I don't know if I can," Ben stammered, clutching the lantern, its light wavering under pressure. "Together!" Sarah shouted, pulling Lily closer. "We have to do this together!" Her voice steadied them, giving Tom a spark of courage. With a determined breath, they moved towards the mirror, the air thick with dread. The darkness outside roared in frustration, clouds of ink swirling, creeping closer with each passing moment. "On 3, Tom said, feeling the weight of the moment. 1, 2, 3. They swung their weapons with an explosive force, the hammer smashing against the glass. A crack spread like lightning, and for a brief moment, hope flickered brightly, as if the light within them could conquer the night. But then, nothing. The mirror stood intact, a wall of reflective terror. The shadows laughed, a chorus of mocking whispers seeping through the cracks. "You're trapped. Accept it," they hissed, serrated tones amplifying the despair that threatened to engulf them. "We're not trapped," Tom shouted back, desperation surfacing in his voice. "We can do this. We have to shatter it." He swung again, adrenaline fueling the strike, yet the mirror remained stubbornly unbroken. Ben, sweat pouring down his face, stepped back, eyes darting. "It's not just a mirror, it's a portal. It's reflecting our fears, but we can't fight it." Tom felt ice in his veins. Was Ben right? Could the truth really trap them? "No! We have to see it!" He glared at the shard-filled mirror as distant memories whispered through his mind. "It's not just what we see, it's what we hide." The darkness hissed, folding in around them, pressing down like a weight suffocating its prey. "You can't break free from what you are," it growled, the voices rapping like chains around their throats. "Look!" Sarah pointed. The surface of the mirror began to ripple, distorting the world behind them. Ghostly reflections twisted, morphing into horrifying figures reflecting their most deeply buried regrets. Tom's breath caught at the sight, his younger self, afraid and abandoned. The chances he never took, the love he lost. Each picture felt like a knife slicing deeper into his soul. "Tom," Lily's tiny voice quivered. "I don't want to see any more." "No!" he shouted, feeling the mountains of doubt shift beneath him. "We have to face it, all of us." They huddled tighter together, clenching each other's hands. Tom looked into the lantern, its flame flickering with hope. It didn't just illuminate their path, it was a part of them. "We have to shine it at the mirror," he declared. "There's light in us, too." With ragged breaths, they raised the lantern, feeding the flickering light toward the mirror. Shadows writhed in fury, and the laughter twisted into shrieks of rage. "You will never escape what you fear." The lantern's glow intensified, pushing against the mirror's darkness. "Fight back!" Tom cried, their voices blending into a singular roar against the night. At that moment, the glass trembled and splintered under the relentless pressure of their collective will. The light burst forth, splintering shadows that howled in torment. But as the darkness receded, another sound emerged, a resonant crack, echoing like a tolling bell. Tom's heart dropped like a stone. The mirror shattered, but so did the silence. Pieces scattered around them, revealing more than just their reflections. Outside, a new shadow emerged from the wreckage, a figure tall and menacing, shifting as if it were born from the shards themselves. Its eyes burned with the weight of every lost soul. Tom instinctively stepped back as dread flooded his veins. "What is that?" he whispered, losing grip on the hammer. The figure loomed closer, its voice slithering through the barn. "You thought you could escape, but I am your truth. I am your reckoning." Terror engulfed them as reality twisted, and the storm of shadows built once more, merging into a single menacing force. "Run!" Sarah yelled, her voice raw with fear. But the barn felt smaller, the darkness a tightening noose as the figure reached out, fingers like icy tendrils closing in. Behind them more whispers rose, memories of failure, despair, and darkness, voices of their pasts threatening to drag them into oblivion. Time ticked in agonizing slowness, and Tom knew they were standing at the edge of a chasm. "Together!" he screamed, but in that moment he noticed something dark and glimmering in the shards on the ground, a reflection of the fight still left in them. Could they find it in time? Would the light still save them, or had they awakened something far worse? As the engulfing shadows roared, hope dangled precariously before them. Would they find the courage to defy their deepest fears, or would the truth consume them all? Tom's heart thundered in his chest as the looming figure advanced, dark tendrils curling around its form like mist. "We have to stand together," he shouted, though doubt crept into his mind. The raw fear in his children's eyes mirrored his own, making his skin crawl. "Tom!" Sarah's voice quavered, desperation sharp in her tone. "What do we do? It's too strong!" He looked at the shards of the shattered mirror scattered at their feet, a chaotic mosaic of their truths. Stories of fear, regret, and even grief lay hidden behind those shards. Could he harness it? Every fragment contained a piece of the darkness, but light, too. They could illuminate it and free themselves from its grip. "Grab the pieces!" he commanded, his voice a rallying cry amid the chaos. Recognizing the path forward, Tom knelt, clutching a large shard, shimmering faintly. "We can reflect the darkness back. Together we can force it out." "Tom, we can't let it in again," Sarah urged as she gathered shards, her hands trembling. "Won't let it. We'll fight it," he replied with a fierceness he didn't know he had. "United, we can stand against it." The darkness surged, whispering lies, attempting to claw at their minds. "You are already mine," it hissed, 1,000 voices mingling into a dreadful chorus. Tom raised the piece of glass, its edge catching the dim light, and he could see the shadows quivering at the sight. "We are more than this," he yelled. The words felt like a pulse through his veins, shaking the grasp of doubt, charging the air with fight. Together, they positioned the shards toward the wraith. The darkness, sensing its impending doom, shrieked, hissing like steam escaping a kettle. "You cannot defeat your fears. You cannot win." "They might be our fears, but they won't own us," Sarah shouted, rallying the family behind her. With renewed vigor, they aimed their shards of glass at the advancing darkness, each family member raising their hands, focusing their combined efforts. The air crackled as light erupted from their gathered shards, a blinding beam piercing through the shadows, casting them away, momentarily shattering the darkness holding them hostage. Tom could feel the power surge as the darkness hissed and recoiled, twisting in unnatural shapes, bending to their collective will. "Push!" he shouted. "Focus on love, on hope." They clung to each other, pouring every ounce of their energy, every moment of light in their lives, every fond memory into those shards. A wave of warmth enveloped them, pushing away the sinister judgments that whispered in their minds. The figure faltered, the tendrils retreating, and a palpable dread filled the air, giving way to brighter shadows, memories that sparked joy instead of fear. Tom's mind spun, recalling moments of laughter shared, triumphs against all odds, and the love that bound them together. The shadows screamed in anguish as they were overwhelmed, light filling every crack, every corner, until nothing was left but the dark. "You can never take our light," shouted Ben, courage shining in his young voice. The haunting figure began to collapse, the shadows unspooling into nothingness. "You will pay for this. You will find darkness again," it hissed. Yet with each word, its body flickered, dissolving as they strengthened their resolve. "There's always light," Lily called, her little voice ringing with strength, capturing Tom's heart as he held on tighter. In the final surge, the darkness imploded, swallowed by the brilliant light they all emitted. Shadows hissed, shrieked, and then fell silent, replaced by a soft glow illuminating the barn, warm and inviting. The figures from outside dissipated into wispy tendrils, fading into the night sky. "Did we do it?" Sarah whispered, looking around, disbelief written on her face. "Yeah, I think we did," Tom responded, breath still shaky but filled with hope. The barn felt warm, peaceful, safe once more. But they knew that this wasn't the end, Darkness might return, but so would their strength, stronger every time they faced it. As they stepped outside, a cool breeze brushed across the Kansas fields, the stars gleaming higher as if smiling down on them, a reminder of the war they had fought together. "Let's go home," Tom said, his heart swelling. Hand in hand, they walked away from the barn, with a resilience forged from pain, but now guarded by love and unwavering hope. In Oak Hollow, the cornfields swayed gently, whispering secrets only they could understand, but together they could confront whatever awaited them. And somewhere deep inside, Tom realized that every shadow cast by light only made them appreciate it more. Now, dear friends, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending, because I want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything, and only true fans recognize the importance of taking action.